Hello. I want to give you a whole heap of recommendations today. Some good YouTube to watch, a good writing tip, in fact a great writing tip, one of the best I've heard, and some comments about books, and end with a vlog of a visit to an Ulster Transport Museum. Let's start with the recommendations on YouTube, or Home from Home. I've come across a YouTuber who works from Oslo, and she's got these very relaxed and relaxing videos of her walking around the city or being at home making ice cream or different things like that. And you get that sense of being in a different country without having to go anywhere. And thank you very much for all of those who did my little tag, which was packing heat, what books to take with you on summer holiday. There's been great results from that, so thank you for those who did that. But the last question on that tag was, what book would you give people to give them the feeling they had gone on holiday, even if they hadn't? And sometimes YouTube gives us that feeling of being somewhere else without the bother of having to pack a bag and even decide what to put in it. And this particular YouTuber, I think, falls into that category. So her channel is called Introvert and Dog, and she doesn't actually say any commentary over it. There's maybe some quiet music playing now and then, but you get to hear the sounds of everyday life, and that's why I think you feel like you are somewhere different. You get to hear people walking through the street, bicycle bells ringing, or whatever is going on, or people's footsteps, doors closing, opening. You have that sense of being in Oslo, being in Norway. And I know I have got at least one friend who absolutely loves the idea of north and places that are northern, and maybe you're the same. If so, don't miss that channel, Introvert and Dog. Another YouTuber new to me and absolutely new to us all, but who's just coming like a wave, is Attack of the TBR by a presenter called Emily. She's just a natural. She's a brilliant first-time booktuber. And I saw her first video, which is called I Have 345 Unread Books, Let's Get Started. She just sits, talks to the camera, very, very relaxed. And at the time I saw it, she had something like 2.7 thousand followers. She's unaware of it at the time. She's just being herself. And at the very end of her video, she says, I don't know if anybody's going to see this. So now, nearly a week later, she's got almost twice that number. I think it's mind-boggling for a first-time booktuber. But I subscribed because she is genuinely interesting and unaffected and fabulous. So remember this name, Attack of the TBR, exclamation mark. One to watch. And thinking about YouTubers, also I want to recommend a friend of ours who's come back again after a while away. And that is Felicity at My House is a Library. And it's true. She's got this large room in her house, and it is a continuous library. She gathers such interesting books, really old, really new, and lots of books about how books were made, older books, manuscripts. Plus, she has such a wide range of fiction as well. You just don't know what's going to turn up in her programme. And she will quite often go to antiquarian bookshops as well and find something, a couple of 100 years old, and buy it and show you the book and talk about it. So she is just like opening a box of chocolates. You've no idea what's going to come from her when she's talking. And she's said she's hoping to get back into the habit of booktubing. She kind of got out of it for a couple of years, and I know I missed her. So look out for that. My House is a Library. Now, another new YouTube channel to me, which is also a podcast, is called Film and Furniture. And believe it or not, it's talking to people who have helped make films and choose the way it's laid out, and they will talk about how this has been. So if you ever watch a movie and you just love the scenery, you feel it adds to the character, in fact you feel it's maybe a bit of a character itself, the buildings, the atmosphere, the way the furniture is, this is one little YouTube podcast you shouldn't miss. And obviously because it's on YouTube, you can see the things that are being talked about, so it makes it especially powerful to see. So Film and Furniture, and the one I watched, the one that brought it to my attention, is called Inside Park Avenue, a love letter to New York through design and storytelling. It's just over half an hour, and it involved chatting to the writer-director Gabby Delal and talking through how her films use furniture, and often she uses furniture from her own home. Occasionally at the end of the shoot she actually buys some of the furniture from the film because she's liked it so much. So she's looking and talking about how using the furniture and the backdrop helps to tell the story of the film, if it's a dark kind of background, if it's a lighter one, whatever it is. And she's using that with the inspiration of her film Park Avenue. So don't miss that if you're keen on film and slightly more, or interiors either, or both. You're absolutely landed. Now, this week I was watching a film. I was doing what I was literally waiting for paint to dry because I was making a project, a Leperello, which is like an accordion book, sketchbook, which opens out, and I had written a poem and illustrated it, and it's for being shown in a private exhibition in August in Edinburgh. And so I was waiting for the paint to dry so that I could get putting more more details onto this accordion based sketchbook. So in that space I've looked at a film called Finding Forrester. It was made in 2000. Director was Gus Van Sant, and the main actor in it was Sean Connery, and he plays the part of a reclusive writer, and there's a kid who's in a very deprived area but who is a keen would-be writer, and the two of them get together, and one helps the other. They're different things because Sean Connery needs help with being too reclusive. But there was fantastic writing advice in it, some of the best I've ever seen. And what it was that Sean Connery had this large desk table, and there was back-to-back typewriters on it. He sat at one side facing one typewriter, and he invited the young lad to sit facing him on the other. And he said, "Okay, let's write." And started typing away instantly. So the younger guy just kind of sat and looked at the typewriter and just didn't have a clue where to start. And Sean Connery kind of came to the end of his first page and took it out of the machine and went and sat down for a while. And then he spoke to the guy and he just said, "Don't think too much. Don't think too much. Why don't you start with copying something?" And he handed him some words he'd written, like an essay, and told him, "Just start typing my words, somebody else's words, copying a book, and then you'll find your own ideas as you start to engage with it. You will get your own ideas. You'll have things you want to say and just start typing those instead. And at the end, you will have an original piece." And I thought, what a fantastic idea. It totally takes away from the fear of the page or where do I start or anything, because of course it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you end up. And if you imagine for the fiction book, you could even start typing the fiction book and then imagine, well, who else comes into the room? And then that becomes the character you're bringing in, and then you gradually fade out what the writer has initially said in the book, and you're suddenly writing your own story about things. So I thought, what a fantastic idea. Start by just typing something else out and then just moving into your own voice and your own interests. Now, I actually ended up doing a little bit of writing and imagination for myself in this same week to 10 days I'm looking back at. And I was sparked by Craig Brown. Now, he's a famous writer in the UK where he writes parodies, and he particularly will write a page of what appears to be somebody famous's diary in the voice of how that person would speak. And they're hilarious, and of course they're slightly changed and made ridiculous, and it's just wonderful. But he does convey that recognisable voice of the famous person. Sorry, I'm having to drink a lot. Keep myself. Keep my throat not being too dry for you. Because nobody likes somebody appearing on a screen in front of them and coughing down the screen at them. So Craig Brown parody got me thinking about it. I actually heard him on a podcast talking about it, and I'll have to tie that down. I can't quite decide which one it was that I heard him on, and he was explaining about the difference between parody and satire and pastiche and so forth. But basically, parody is more gentle than satire. Parody tends to be where you genuinely have an affection for what you're parodying, and so you appreciate it, you kind of like it, you know it so well that you can write in a similar style, but you do it for fun. You make it humorous, you make it over exaggerated, and that just inspired me to do something and make a video which has been uploaded, which is called Garb August Write Your Own Trashy Novels. So Garb August obviously is a lot of things that are very genre aware, where you pick up a book and you look at the front cover and the title and you immediately know what genre it's in. You know it's going to be an adventure one or a detective or a romance. It's just got all the marks of that type of novel. Sorry, excuse me. So I decided to do mashups of famous novels and ones that fit in certain genres. So I had great fun writing the ideas for what they would be, and then lo and behold, I actually had books I don't like, which I got from a terrible pop-up book sale, an absolutely awful one. It's so bad I haven't even spoken about it on YouTube here, but it had brought me in it I had bought some hardbacks which I wasn't sure about, and so I was able to think that I'm not going to like this book. It has been rejected and thrown into this pop-up book sale that we got rid of. It's not going to have great readers, so I just took the hardback and wrote on it. I literally wrote the titles. So this is called Five Go Mad and Little Getting Eddie Elliot Blytown. And obviously Five Go Mad is like an Enid Blyton book, and then Little Getting is a really famous poem done by T.S. Eliot, so I mixed them up a bit. And then, of course, so I've got a title and a book. Inside there's a ready printed book, not the one I have written. This is just an idea of a title. And then on the back, I wrote what the blurb would be, the synopsis. So for example, here we have Five Go Mad and Little Getting, a tale of gang warfare and money laundering in 1920s New England. The Venomous Five gang, Georgia, Vic, Julie, Millie Mollycoddles, and the mafia boss and part-time dentist, Timmy McCavity, set up a network of illegal ginger beer speakeasies in Prohibition, Massachusetts. But the rival gang, the Secret Seven, also want the same pitch. Trigger warning, for those with food allergies, there's a food fight at the end. So there we go. So I did about 5 of those. We also had, of course, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Seek by Louis Le Carre Stevenson as well, things like that. So if you like the sound of that, it's a video you can check out. But that just was so inspiring, the whole idea of parody and the fact that it is affectionate as well as humorous. And I'm so glad it gave me a use, as I say, for some books from a really terrible sale. One of the worst things about the sale was at the start you paid for a tote bag and then you filled the tote bag with as many books or as little as you wanted. And the quality of range of the books was horrendous. There was almost no non-fiction and no science fiction either. So it was very thin picking. So I just got the least worst I could find. And of course, I've now been able to put them to some good use. This last week or so, I have also got to see Chris Nolan's Odyssey, but I think that deserves a separate video of its own. And I would say go and see it. That's cut to the chase. That's what I do think. And finally, I mentioned a vlog of the Ulster Transport Museum. It was a day trip. I would just say allow about 3 or 4 hours to see around it. It's outside Belfast and at Cultra, and bring a picnic. There were lots of good tables outside and a pleasant landscape, and then if it rained, there's also good space indoors in the last section, which is invention. And you've got 2 main places, one of which is to do with trains, which is of course great delight for anyone who likes trains, and they've also got cars and trucks and buses and trams. And I had the most astonishing conversation with someone I was speaking to a woman and she just said, oh, look at all these transport vehicles. It just shows how much better it was in ancient times with the trams. And I said, ancient times? The trams? And she said, well, you know, the 1920s. Yes, and for some of us, the idea of ancient times is more like something you'd see in Chris Nolan's Odyssey. It's the kind of idea of a trireme or some boat steered with slaves at the oars or something, but it's not that ancient in the 1920s. At least I think so. So anyway, the vlog of the Ulster Transport Museum. We went there as somebody else's treat, and actually I ended up enjoying it lots because it went through such a spectrum of time. Something that was particularly moving for me was there was a whole section, of course, on the Titanic. As you know, that's very much linked with Belfast as being the place where the ship was built. And there was a display that showed the amount of people who survived, who were passengers, and there was one for first class, and then there was the steerage, and then you saw how many survived the staff. And as you can imagine, as the people were wealthier, there was more of them had escaped disaster on the boat and lived to tell the tale. So it made an important point. And the other thing was an audio bit of a real voice, which, I mean, the voice of a real person, not an actor. And there's something about a person's authentic voice that just carries history, carries a sense of what they've been through. And it was the voice of a radio operator who was on a ship fairly close by, who knew he was a radio operator, and he knew the radio operator on the Titanic. And the thing he said was that the operator slowed down his normal speed of tapping out messages in Morse code so that it would be clearly understood. And it also just kept going. It did not stop. He was constantly sending out the message for help. But I was surprised at how much time I took to enjoy the day, and that moment of seeing an older car or an older bus or something, and just that familiarity, that shock of familiarity that you think, oh yes, in my lifetime, or things that you may have seen that were very old cars that we'd see them in films, but then you got to see them close up and think, yes, this was somebody's car, this was somebody's vehicle. Life used to be like that. Anyway, I'll leave you with the sights of the museum, and I'll say bye for now.